Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He is the host of Talking About Sports podcast and is an independent professional wrestling personality. Pleased to welcome the one and only Keven the Truth Casey. Welcome, Keven, to Wrestling with Heart.
Hey, great to be here, Stanley. I hope everything's going well and all your listeners and followers are doing well.
Yeah, good to have you on here. Talk to me about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and pretty good upbringing. Went to St. Paul's Catholic School in Richmond, Virginia, and then went to public high school, middle school and high school to play sports, and went to high school, JUCO, and played Division I sports. I was on the Division I soccer team. We had a club wrestling team at Virginia Commonwealth University. I'm repping their athletic director, Ed McLaughlin. Number one, should put me and a couple of my teammates in the Hall of Fame, but notwithstanding, I do support them. I do support the athletic director at the program. It's doing very well, but I went to school there, and it was I'm kind of get ahead of myself, but someone I went to college with, someone I grew up with in my neighborhood in Northside, Richmond, Virginia, he got into professional wrestling. Went to college with me, and he had a lot of basketball scholarships. I'm speaking of his wrestling name. His last known wrestling name was the Punisher Tommy Rose. He was trained by Randy Rose of the Midnight Express. If you're following the original Midnight Express, Randy Rose, one of the original members, he trained my friend who took the name, wrestling name Rose as his last name. He was Midnight Tommy Rose, then the Punisher Tommy Rose. Good guy. He's the guy that broke me in to professional wrestling. And the whole story is, and I'm kind of going really fast, and we can go back, but I was in the School of Mass Communications, and and I hope you can hear me well, by the way.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, you want to do like radio and TV, and I got a way for you to do that." And I was like, okay, because I was in the lower levels of the school. Later went into the upper levels of the school and worked at a TV station while I was in college and performing on weekends. I ran afoul with the athletic department because getting money on the side was not acceptable in those days before NIL. And it's funny how guys on the basketball team with my degree who I never saw in any of my classes, and everyone in the mass communications broadcast track, we were all in the same classes together for 2 years. So I never saw these guys on the basketball team. It's like they didn't have to go to class, or at least our classes. And if you didn't go to our classes, the teachers would dock you like a letter grade if you missed classes. So we had to do this. And so I had to make a choice. To lose my scholarship, I needed to recoup that income. And so I got broken into professional wrestling and did that. And I had an opportunity to go on camera, go on radio, go on the microphone, and get our message out. And that's how I got in, and that's why I kind of did that. And then when I came to graduating, it was either go into journalism full-time or go into wrestling full-time. And at that time, young, in shape, nothing going on other than just working, I said I'd go for it. And I said, whatever happens, happens. It's now or never. So that's what I did, and that's how I got into professional wrestling.
Were you always a fan growing up?
We had, I did. It's ironic that I grew up watching Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in the Carolinas and Virginia, which was the Jim Crockett territory. And I ended up later meeting, I remember watching guys on TV, in the 70s, that were, I'm 61 years old. So I don't mind saying that because, when I go out to, I'm around town here in the Catawba, Newton, Conover, Hickory, even into Kannapolis, Concord, North Carolina, outside of the Charlotte area. I don't mind saying how, my age, I'm in pretty good shape for my age, and I get put over by a lot of young women everywhere I go, but I'm thankfully engaged to a young, beautiful woman who's puts me over and puts up with me. So I'm very thankful that Shabbatka Love Bynum, and who we're going to get married either later this year or early next year. And we're looking
Congratulations.
forward. So, but I watched Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and Bob Caudle and David Crockett were the hosts. And I ended up being a broadcast partner with Bob Caudle at one time, really one of the highlights of my wrestling career. Yeah, and I remember my first TV with South Atlantic Pro Wrestling was in Pembroke, North Carolina, hometown of Chris Chavis, War Eagle Chris Chavis, aka Tatanka. And I remember going through the production meeting. I'm just kind of, God, I can't believe there's Bob Caudle right next to me. And I'm in a production meeting, and we did like, I don't know, 3-4 hours of TV. Took my headset off after the match, and the last match we went off the air, and I looked at Bob and I said, "Hey, thank you, Bob. I grew up watching you on TV. It's a really big honor." And from that moment on, he really liked me. We got along well. I complimented him. I don't think I was as good at that stage of my career, but I was blind, so to speak. And Bob, he said, "Man, you're great, man. You got a lot of talent, man. So just keep doing it." And so that really put me at ease. And we went from there. So I watched Mid-Atlantic Wrestling growing up, to answer your question, long-winded, but I watched wrestling growing up, and it was Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. That's all we had. This is the old days, 3 channels before cable. We get cable, I'm in high school, and that's what spurred my interest, seeing ESPN for the first time. I said, I want to do that, talk about sports, right? And so that's what I geared my academic, pursuits towards. And, so that's what it was all about. We got cable TV. And so that at that point, we got WWF TV on the channel in Washington, D.C., WDCA Channel 20. And I saw all the guys on that channel from the WWF that I used to see in the magazines, the George Napolitano and Bill Apter magazines. And by the way, I met those guys. They're great. They used to put me over all the time back in the late 80s, the 80s and 90s. It's always good to network, so to speak. And they always put me over. And so I loved wrestling. I love seeing it, love being around it, and broke in. So I had a lot of ups and downs during my career, but watching Mid-Atlantic Wrestling spurred my interest to go into wrestling one day, and that's what I did.
That's so cool, getting the chance to work with your heroes and meet the people you grew up watching. Who were some of your favorite wrestlers that you enjoyed watching growing up?
I mean, it's kind of hard to answer that now, because I later worked with some of the guys I used to watch on TV. I'm gonna drop some names on you that are, I don't know how far back. You're a young guy, at least to me. And when I used to watch TV, I'm gonna tell you who guys that I liked, but I also ended up working with some of these guys. I remember, when I was still based in Virginia, still in college, I was told Charlotte was a big hub of Crockett sports, Crockett promotions. The Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling was right in this area where I live.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if you would really increase your bookings and get your name out and do more things if you move down here. So that's what I did. I was still working all over the country and all over the world at that time, but I still wanted to get more bookings. So I moved to the Charlotte area, and it was recommendations. And this is kind of like how it was in that area, and probably to some degree today, although I'm not involved in wrestling. I have a few friends still on the fringes of the business, but I'll get into them later. But, it was all about, networking and getting down here. And that's what I did. And the guys who put in words for you with different promoters in those days, guys like who I ended up working on the independent circuit with Ivan Koloff, Wahoo McDaniel. And Wahoo said, "Hey, you want to come down here? You can stay at my house." He had a nice luxury condo in Charlotte, and he said, "You stay here till you get a few checks in, then you get your own place." And then that's what I did. Ended up rooming with Tommy Angel, Gene Leidick, aka Jeff Husker, and some of the guys of this area who were trained by Nelson Royal and Gene Anderson, and Gene's son Brad lives like within 10 minutes from me where I live right now, and I love Brad. Brad has a very good podcast going now too, by the way. And so I moved down here, and Wahoo put me up. Ivan Koloff had a school at that time in Indian Trail, North Carolina, on the eastern side of Charlotte. And so I got to work and hone my craft. And I ended up consulting someone who I met through the wrestling industry, the guy who I consider the greatest, the George Washington of pro wrestling. I said that to him on one of my old TV shows. I told that to Lou Thez. Lou Thez I had him on my TV show. I ended up doing a lot of broadcasting. I was doing play-by-play. He was doing color, and Lou was a confidant. And he told me early in my career, he says, "Look," he said, "I know you're a Division I athlete. You 6'3", 225. I was in good shape." And he says, "Look, you have a good skill set, but you're going to make more money talking versus wrestling. Yeah, you're great. You're a good athlete and all that. You know how to wrestle." He says, "But you'll make more money speaking. You have what we call mental agility." I never forgot that. And so I focused more of my pursuits on managing, broadcasting. And if you ever seen some of my old videos, I'm the one talking with guys who were very good wrestlers, top performers, some of which may not have been as good at talkers as I was perceived to be. But I was the guy that on a smaller scale, the Bobby Heenans of the world. I was the guy out front speaking ahead of my group, so to speak. So that's how I evolved into my career.
Now, when you're working with these athletes, when you're managing the wrestlers, um, any pointers or pieces of advice you get from the people backstage that you can recall and even apply to today?
Lots of it. And the thing is, when you're young in the business, and it used to be this way, and sadly, I don't know how. I'll say this: a lot of the young guys nowadays, and I don't know how it is in the sport because I retired in the '90s, so I don't follow wrestling today. I don't. I don't think I'm not a fan of the product. But then I remember when I was in the '80s and '90s, the old timers then they didn't like wrestling at that point. So I don't want them to be these bitter old guys, get off my lawn type guys. But I don't like the product. To me, it's not believable. I know it's Vince McMahon kind of went public in the '80s to avoid athletic commission fees and taxes, and I get that. It's kind of what was going on at the time, but I've never been really comfortable talking about the inner workings of wrestling publicly unless they're someone I knew, another insider like myself. But I don't like the product. I don't think it's believable. There weren't personalities like Blackjack Mulligan, Ivan Koloff, Ricky Steamboat, Abe Jacobs. These guys were the legends. And the thing is, when you're backstage and you're in these types of conversations, you lean on how it was in those days, and it should be hopefully still. You come into an arena, you're booked, you go into the back, you introduce yourself, you walk around the locker room. Hi, how you doing? I'm Kevin Casey. Nice meeting you. And you say that. And then when you do that, you kind of get out of the way. You keep your mouth shut and your ears open. And you listen and you lean on the veterans, the name guys who would come in. Some of the independent shows that they had back in those days. You'd bring in a few guys who are out off of the NWA, WCW, or WWE. They're off of their runs and they're available on these independent scenes. And they bring them in. You pay them more, but they bring notoriety to your card, and it helps the guys on before the intermission. And you lean on guys, you talk to them, and whatever they say goes. And hey, what are we doing tonight? And you defer to the veteran, and that's how it used to be. You show respect for the business, number one, and you show respect for who you're working for and who's paying you that night. I was fortunate to be on a lot of good shows, good crowds, and but sometimes for whatever reason, either the people who were on top were not drawing. You didn't have a lot of people sometimes. I'll never forget. We were I think we were in Richmond, my hometown, and on the card were they were then known as the New Zealand Militia, Jack Victory and Rip Morgan, guys who were friends of mine at that era. And I just remember, kind of like you're in the back, and you're like, man, the crowd's down today, houses are down, and it's like, you don't feel that adrenaline. You don't hear the crowd. It was kind of quiet, and it was a small crowd. And I'll never forget Jack Victory going out onto the floor and really working hard. And that was a professional, someone at that point who was in World Championship Wrestling, coming into one of these small independent shows in a small crowd, and he still went out and hustled and bumped and went out on the hard, literally on a hard floor and going out there. And so I never forgot that, no matter how big the crowd is, you got to put on a show. And a mark of a true professional is you work hard if there's one fan or 1,000 fans.
Yeah, you got to really put a lot of effort in, 100% and 110% even, and really, show the passion and dedication because it is no joke. You have to sacrifice so much in to be a pro wrestler and be in the wrestling business. I want to talk about some of the memories you have. Any favorite memories you care to share from your time in the industry?
I've got thousands of stories, but and I got more stories than we have time today. But um, I think that what I learned from the business, I made a lot of mistakes. I wish if I could go back, I would do a lot of things differently. I may not have. I think I would have gotten out a little earlier than I did, and got into broadcasting a little earlier than, not too much, just maybe a couple years. I would have been more. I think it would have done me better. And the reason I got out of wrestling, and this is a tale, cautionary tale too, and it's not just wrestling, it's to young guys, and no matter what your sport is, it was a different era then. So we're talking 80s. So, and then 80s and 90s. And, I was, lucky enough to be booked and and attained the position I did, getting into the business and being able to learn and get better to the point where I got booked other places. So I was fairly notable. I got into the magazines. I was on through the ICW, Mario Savoldi's ICW, with the South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, the World Wrestling Council. You get booked everywhere. And it was a cautionary tale that, I was in the fast lane, not just Stan Lane's boat. My good friend, Nature Boy Stanley Lane, Sweet Stan Lane, the gangster of love, my good friend. And I was running fast, and I wasn't on my mental game out of the ring. And you're touring, you're traveling, you think you're bulletproof, you're young, you're getting money. It's nice getting envelopes full of cash on Saturday nights when, like, let's say I'm working in the World Wrestling Council, Capital Sports Promotions in San Juan, Victor Jovica's promotion, Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica's promotion, and you're getting cash, and you're young, you're tan, you're in shape. You got adulation. You're hearing the noise all around you, and you're starting to believe your own hype. And I came across a person with an agenda, a motive, a woman, and I wasn't following my morality growing up, my Catholic faith, and I made a mistake. I'm terming it a misstep, not a mistake, a misstep in my career, and it came to a point as a man. What am I going to do? This woman who I was not dating regularly, running fast and loose, told me she was pregnant, and it shook me to my core. I prayed, and ultimately decided to, I was gonna. There were highs and lows in wrestling. You make good money some weeks, some months, and it's down. Houses are up and down. How are you booked? You booked 10 times this month. If you're independent, that's not bad. You're working 10, 15, 20 times a month. That's not bad if you're an independent guy. You're at the WWF or WCW at the time. You're working like 25, and you're getting paid. You're getting paid every night on some of these independent shows. Money's up, money's down. I needed something more stable if I was going to be a part of a child's life. And my son, Adam Isaiah Casey, you're basically a year older than you, Stan. And so I retired from wrestling and went into, and I said, this is part of my plan. If I don't make it, I got a degree in mass communications, and I will apply my trade that way. And I came to that decision, and I retired from the business in the 90s to focus on my broadcast career and to raise my son. And that's what I did. So that's what got me out of the business, not making good decisions at that time in my life. But, God has a plan for us all. And I'm not overly religious, although I do go to mass and I believe and I pray every day. I had to make a decision. I loved wrestling. I loved being in the back, talking to the guys, the traveling, sometimes 2, 3, 4 guys in a car, splitting the ride, sharing a motel room, because cutting back and saving your money. And that thing is, that's another thing we learned in those days in wrestling. Now I guess guys got tour buses and you're in the big time, but you learned a lot riding from town to town. Not all good. The lessons were not always good, but they were lessons nonetheless. And there was a lot of, libations and a lot of, the distractions sometimes in the car. But you would get in a car, like say with Dick Murdoch, and he's telling you about stories from the 60s and 70s, and you listen to that. If you're a young guy like me at that time, you listen to that. You're in a car or you're in the back. And that's how how psychology, you talked about the business, being in a car with Tracy Smothers and those guys. You learn about the Fidel Sierra, and you listen to these guys and they tell you stories about, well, this time we did this and there. Well, here we did this, here we did that. And you're hearing this and you learn, you listen, and hopefully you can evolve. And that's kind of how we did things at that era. I know it's a different era now. And I hope the guys today are safe. They're making money, and I hope they're saving their money. That's something I didn't do enough of, because again, you go back to some of those days, you think you're bulletproof. You're making money, you look good, and you think it's never going to end, but it always does. And you always got to, and you have to save your money.
Yeah, it's definitely changed and evolved over the years.
Yeah, it definitely has changed. And, in those days, I guess today they have guaranteed contracts. They have a trainer who travels with, I'm speaking of, let's say, the AEW now, or WWF, WWE. I guess they have people like doctors, professionals who travel with them. Guys, if you get a concussion or an injury, you report that to your agent. In my era, you didn't perform, you didn't get paid. It was that simple. And you would wrap up, you'd tape up, you take some aspirin at the time, and you would just, or whatever you needed to do to perform. The show had to go on.
Let's talk about your podcast, talking about sports. What made you decide to get that started?
Well, we're in hiatus right now with the podcast right now, but we had a good run, nearly a decade. Keven Tolbert is the guy who is behind ADSN, Another Damn Sports Network. Keven Tolbert and I worked together at TNN, the old Nashville network, which became Spike TV, and I don't even know what they're called now. But they ended up getting, I think Spike got ECW, I think, at one time, because working there. But Keven Tolbert and I worked at TNN, the Nashville network, as it was known, owned by CBS, and we did the NASCAR. We did NASCAR on TBS, TNT, CBS. If it wasn't on ESPN, our company, World Sports Enterprises, we produced the broadcast. And I was in another area of the company. I was doing another broadcast. But we had, anytime you saw NASCAR on TV, whether it be the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, or the Cup Series, we did World of Outlaws, we did sprint cars, we did ASA, we did a lot of these things. And Keven Tolbert was a shooter and a videographer and an editor, and later won Emmy Awards. Very talented, and he started this company that produced this sports podcast, and he tapped me to be the host of it. And I think we did very well with that. We had quality guests. I don't think we were drawing the revenue that I think it needed to sustain the overhead we had at the time. And I think there's still discussions about getting new investors involved and moving forward that way. And I hope that's the case.
Outside of wrestling and outside of the broadcasting, I know you're very involved with helping out in your community. You participated in a lot of different events over the years. What kinds of things have you done to raise money or give back to your community over the years?
Well, being a public personality, so to speak, you meet people. And I remember, I don't know, you're based out of Nashville. I don't know what your listenership is, but a guy who was a big star in Florida and Mid-Atlantic wrestling, Paul Jones, #1 Paul Jones. And Paul had an auto business in Charlotte, and I was a limited partner in that. And when I moved back from my second radio stop in Las Vegas, I moved back to Charlotte to work at a sports station here in Charlotte, and WFNZ. And Paul, who knew me from wrestling, and I knew him, he was once involved in South Atlantic Pro Wrestling. He introduced me to Roman Gabriel, the former NFL MVP, played for the Los Angeles Rams and Philadelphia Eagles, big towering person. I knew him growing up. I mean, dude, Gabe was big. You know, he was a legend, and Gabe did a lot of charity golf tournaments, and then I end up, you get invitations. Hey, you meet someone here, you meet someone there, you're a fan, or hey, you're at a show. Hey, I'm putting on this tournament. Would you appear? And, we're not, we don't want to be bloodsuckers, and you're doing this for charities, but you'd like to get some type of compensation to, for expenses to get to where these things are taking place. But a lot of these, and Gabe would put on golf tournaments. And he was a guy who went on USO tours with Bob Hope. He was on TV shows, movies, you name it, John Wayne movies, and the whole bit. So Gabe talks to me about, hey, you're athletic, you're still young at the time, you want to play some celebrity golf tournaments. Just show up, play golf, have fun, talk to people, and they're paying for the privilege of playing with a sports personality. One of like a person like myself in a group of 3 paying people or whatever the setup was, and you would go to these tournaments. And we did things for juvenile diabetes research, domestic violence prevention and awareness, boys and girls clubs, big brothers, big sisters, whatever the charities, Mac Williams, ALS research. No matter what the charity was, we would show up. A group of, not always just sports personalities, people who play different sports, people in movies, TV, whatever it was. And you'd show up and you would generate revenue. And these tournaments that I did, not just through Roman, but through other people, organizers who did these things. And it was easy for us. We like playing golf. You show up, we usually play a practice round among ourselves. All the guys, we'd show up and do our thing. And then we go put on our public performance today when people are paying, and then and after expenses are met, there'd usually be a net proceeds that would be distributed to these various charities, and that's what we did.
That's so amazing, getting involved in something you love and are very passionate about, being a part of something huge, with your friends and networking with all kinds of people. Was there a particular cause that you are passionate about that you got to help spread awareness with for these tournaments?
Well, I'm involved with one of my a close friend of mine, William Wilson is his name. Will grew up in Arkansas, joined the Navy, got a degree. Well, his degrees are degrees from University of Arkansas and Old Dominion University. Then he went into NASCAR and became a crewman in the NASCAR Truck Series. He won 2 titles. He was a jackman for Ted Musgrave's Truck Series team for two championships. Should have won a third, and that's what he talks about most of all. But William Wilson also started a clothing company, and he has something called the Clother Classic, and his cause is domestic violence prevention and awareness. That's something that I really support. I grew up sadly in a home that had those types of things, so I could relate. And now it's something I'm very focused on. I'm very against any type of domestic violence. I'm very, very maybe to my own detriment. But if I see someone who I think is out of line, I will confront them. I'm not young anymore, 61 years old, but I'm still not no slouch. I learned a lot. I know a lot. I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I'm not going to put up and see things that go awry. I'll just digress temporarily. I was still wrestling at the time, and I was emceeing, one of my between tours. I was in Richmond, and a local establishment restaurant had little bands, and I would come on, warm the crowd up. I was getting paid, and but also help the security guys. And I would MC and stuff. And I remember one night we were off. I was with Punisher Tommy Rose, the Bad Dog Mike Thomas, and I know one of the guys on the basketball team at VCU with me, Martin Henlon, and there's a lot of other people that I knew, local people. And I saw this guy grabbing this woman at the bar, and it was untowards, and I didn't dig it. And I walked up to the guy really close, uncomfortable. I said, "Dude, what are you doing?" And we had some words, and he was basically telling me to mind his own business and my business. But I said, "No, that's not how it's going to go." And one of his buddies hits me blindside, And then my friends jumped in, and then we tore the whole place down and did, several hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. Now, I didn't want that to happen, but I stood up for a woman who I thought was being abused at the time, not in public. This is ridiculous. This is, granted, this is a different time, but it was still, no time is a good time for that. And I stood up for that because that's something that I believe in. I got, didn't want that. I don't care if they didn't want to book me anymore. That was not the problem. I didn't care at the time. So that domestic violence awareness and prevention is something that I really support. And William Wilson, with his Clother Classic and his charitable foundation, he supports domestic violence awareness and research. And so I support that. That's, if you ask me what's my number one thing that I support, that's what it is.
Wow. What you did was very courageous, very brave. It's very hard, to see something like that go on, and you put yourself out there and were able to take care of it, take care of the situation, and it's kudos to you.
Well, I was lucky I had guys like the bad dog, Mike Thomas, there, because you turn around, you see a guy, he hits me upside the head with a glass ashtray back in those days. And it was on. It was like one of these old things, the Wild Wild West, one of these old Western bar fights. That's what it turned into. And you got a guy like Tommy Rose throwing guys out through windows. Bad Dog. I've never seen Bad Dog, who was a state amateur wrestling champion in Colonial Heights, Virginia. He grabs a guy and basically belly to back suplexes him through a table. And then these guys were no joke. The guys that I traveled with, guys of my era, I'm not saying we were tougher than a lot of guys today, but I'm saying we were very tough in those days. And we didn't mess around. We laid everything in, and it was dog eat dog. You stood up, and when chairs and fists are flying, you got to protect yourself, and that's what we did. We took up for the business, we took up for ourselves, and we took up at that moment in time. We took up, did things for the better cause. I wasn't going to let one of my friends get jumped. They weren't going to let me get jumped because we were doing the right thing, and we took care of business.
Yeah. What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
Well, I mean, I know when I go to let's say the Clother Classic, which is played at the Sifford Golf Course, named for Charles T. Sifford, one of the first black golfers, and who won tournaments. We have a night before, meet fans, and we have a night afterwards. Sometimes there's bowling events, sometimes it's at a golf range or a driving range, a Top Golf kind of a place, and you meet these people, and they contribute to these charities, and you meet people from various backgrounds, and it's a way that you can interact. They see you on the golf course, but maybe some people don't really know you. They don't know how to approach you, but yet they see you at a social event, and you're like over on the side, you're with your girlfriend or whoever, or the people you showed up with, and they can talk to you. And it's about interacting with people in real life, because that's how you network in real life. And that's what I did. And that's one of the things that I look forward to when doing these golf tournaments. Like Roman would put the tournament. Here's another thing with Gabe. We're in Wilmington, North Carolina, Roman's hometown. I worked there. I was at the news and sports director at 980 The Wave WAAV in 2004. I remember going to the Mac Williams golf tournament. This is what it was for. Mac Williams, it turns out, was a high school teammate of Roman's who developed health issues. And so for 30 years now, Roman did a tournament in Wilmington, the Wilmington area, to raise funds and awareness for him and his family and the cause. And they used to have this thing at the Elks Lodge in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he'd had this band, and it was the same one every year, and it was great. It was older, shag band, 60s kind of era music. And Buddy Skipper and the Jetty Jumpers. I'll see little things that you can remember. And you're at this the Elks Lodge of all places. And, you're having fun. There's drinks, there's food, and it was people are talking to you. And I would always ride to these tournaments with Abe Jacobs, a legendary professional wrestler from New Zealand who was on the $10 bill in New Zealand for a number of years, wrestled for New Zealand in the Olympics. And Abe passed away a couple of years ago at 95, by the way, in tip-top shape. And, you'd ride to these tournaments, and we talk about the business and life. We go to these events, no matter where they were in we would always find a way to interact with people, raise money for the charities, and we would do very well that way.
Yeah, and so when you go to these events, I'm sure like you get people that come up to you and say like you've made a real difference in our lives and our kids' lives because you're raising money for things like juvenile diabetes and domestic violence. I mean, that's those are some very serious causes.
We met through Gabe. I met Bill Green. Bill has a son. I hope Bill's still alive. I haven't talked to some of these people. It's a not really saying great about me or not keeping up with people, but Bill's son Matt had juvenile diabetes. This is we're talking 90s now, and he was like these. I've never experienced that. I'm a parent and grandparent now, so I don't know what these things are like. I was fortunate enough that my people in my family we avoided some of the bad things, and what do you do as you're a parent and you're looking at hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical costs and things. You need help. You need to offset these things. And I met Matt, Bill Green, and he did a tournament. He named it after his son Matt. And we did Matt Green golf tournaments at Bryan Park in Greensboro, North Carolina every year. And 2 golf courses sold out. We drew. We had good crowds. We had guys like Sweet Hansen, Abe Jacobs, Rene Goulet, among Nikita Koloff, so many guys. Paul Jones would contribute their time. Not to mention the other sports like Jeff Bostic, Joe Bostic, brothers who played in the NFL. Jordan Rhodes, a Hollywood actor, and just different people of different sports. Gene Banks, who played at Duke and played for my San Antonio Spurs, who you see right there. You get to meet these different people, and we get to interact, and we play among ourselves. And Roland Moss, who played for the Baltimore Colts and New England Patriots, you meet different people. Now I'm just going to name drop when they pop into my head. I'm just going to mention their names because a lot of them, their names deserve to be mentioned. So you have fun, you have interactions, you see that you can contribute to your society, your community, and you want it to know that when these people are having these silent auctions and there's a check to be delivered to this charity, you had a role in that. And I'm also a member of the Knights of Columbus, and we do. I'm not as active as I should be, third degree, but you raise money and you give it and you cut checks to these various organizations. And to look on the people, the organizers, when they do these things, they appreciate when you're handing them checks for thousands of dollars, and they can use towards their upkeep, their utilities, the things that they need to do to persevere and to provide assistance for their recipients.
Kindness goes a long way, and the more we can spread the good word, it can help so many people. It really can.
Absolutely, and it's something you feel good about. When everyone knows this is life. Your head hits the pillow every night. What do you do? For me, and I'm only speaking for me, but when my head hits the pillow at night, when it's time, my eyes are shut, phone is down, I pray. And this isn't just jewelry for me; it's a way of life. And I try. I have a conscience. That's why I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes along the way. And I'm just hoping that I make less mistakes these days than I did back in those days. But you have to answer to who you look at in the mirror. What did you do today? What are you going to do today? Did you make a difference? You got to answer. When you're ultimately everybody's got to go to the gate. Is St. Peter going to let you in or not? And they're going to look back at your record, your life. Are you worthy enough to get in here? Heaven. I hope I am one day. And you hope that you've done enough. That I know one thing. Anytime you feel like you're running loose and fast, sometimes you get, as Shiki Baby would say, you get humbled, and life humbles you. God humbles you sometimes. On the road to Damascus, Saul was an evil man, a persecutor. He got knocked off the horse by God's shining light. He became St. Paul and became an evangelist, and because he was humbled on the road to Damascus in real life. And those are some of the consequences. Some people may never get it. There are people who are nefarious, notable, infamous, if you will, the Hitlers, the Stalins, these types of people. These are, they're going to get it. They're burning right now. But what did they do? They did these horrible things. God tests us. I'm not a minister. I'm not a preacher, a priest, or anything. I'm just a person who applied my Catholic faith, and I try to do it every day in my life. And you just got to do what's best for you, what you think is best, and because you'll have to answer to God one day. But on earth, you have to look in the mirror, and when your head hits the pillow, you pray and hope that you did well that day, and you hope that tomorrow will be better.
Got to live life to its fullest and live one day at a time and pay it forward to the next person.
Absolutely, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah, man. Keven, this has been wonderful. Getting the chance to speak with you means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find more about you on social media? And if you want to plug anything, feel free to do it.
Well, it's my chance to get put over here. Okay, I get it, man. I work for iHeartMedia. I'm working the Total Traffic and Weather Division. If your local radio stations play traffic reports, odds are it's being produced by my company. You're in Nashville. We got iHeart has stations in Nashville. Their call letters escape me right now, but we have a big footprint in Nashville. We're the world's biggest communications company, 850 radio stations. They own Premier Radio. Live Nation is part of our company. So, but I work for them. I work for a media company. So I am, not tech savvy, but I'm trying to be media savvy. I'm on Facebook, Keven La Verdad Casey. That's my personal page. I have my fan page, Keven the Truth Casey. I'm also on Instagram, Keven the Truth Casey, TikTok, La Verdad 727. I'm on X, Keven Casey Truth. So if people want to follow me on X, on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, I'm all for it. And I'm all about, I am available for a nominal fee in trans. So if you have some type of an event that someone with my skill set can help you represent, they can contact me via social media.
Keven, thanks again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Anytime, Stan.
Take care.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.